Hey, and welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Hour. I'm your host this week, Rob Lupo with Lupo Outdoors, and with me, kind of like the plague or luggage, he sticks around forever. This is Jason from the Rogue Banshee. How you doing, Jason? Can I just start calling you
Doing
luggage?
good. It's not the plague. It's I stick around like COVID. Just never go around. And never go away, man. Just
Yeah,
and I just love to share.
yes, you do. So it's gonna be this is gonna be an interesting talk today. We're going to talk about uh, different types of water activities, different sports that you'd be on the water with, everything from fishing, kayaking, canoeing, whitewater rafting, everything having to do with water. Water it is, our water. Um,
The most
so why don't you
plentiful
lead us
element
off
of the
here,
earth.
Jason? And
Well,
that would be a good question.
but yeah, no, it's funny. I'm just looking at my stats here, and I might lag out a little bit here, but no, I was thinking about this when we were on last week. I'm like, let's do something different and let's go out. Let's go out in the water because it's been a while since I've been out on the water, and it's just kind of thinking, yeah, there's so much to do. I mean, there's anywhere from just regular boating to fishing to something that didn't like even exist back when I was doing all outdoor stuff was, like kayak camping. Like that's become a thing now. And
Why
I
don't you
just
talk
I just
about
thought
that?
it'd
Tell
be
us what that is and what's involved.
well, you see, that's the thing is I don't know a whole lot about it. It's just what I've read. But it's really cool. These people, they go out on like these rivers and they load up their kayak with some camping gear. They strap it onto the into the hull there, and then they go paddle and then find a place to pull off, camp for the night, and then keep on going in the morning. I just thought that was the coolest thing, and I was thinking about this because um, out here we have the Smith River and people float the Smith for floating trips. And I would imagine that there's probably some people that go out there in kayaks if they could pull the permits for it. So I just thought that would be kind of cool. It's like, hey, a kayak's not a big boat. So you only have so much gear that you can take with you. So that would be kind of cool. It's kind of minimalist at its best. You might be
Yeah.
out there with like some just a bare minimum food. You might actually just go fish for your food that night and eat some fresh fish. So I was just thinking that'd be kind of cool.
You know, um, I mean, that didn't exist, you know, um,
That's like a
when
really
I
new
was out
thing.
there. Yeah, that actually sounds like it would be very enjoyable, honestly. It's just, minimalist pack up your kayak, have your fishing gear and all that stuff. The cool thing would be is as you're kayaking and going down the river or across a lake or from like if you had a really large lake and you're kind of going from point to point to point, and I mean you can fish, so you can have your lunch and dinner all, and just trail your fish with you. And
It'd be
God,
it'd be the
that would be
freshest.
brilliant.
It'd be the freshest food you'd have, right?
Yep. Yep. Wow, that would be really entertaining. And just how peaceful that would be, I mean, of course, you could do that with with like a raft. You could do that with, rowboats and all that stuff. But there's something a little bit more intimate and more relaxing with kayaking. It's just, um,
Well, it's truly like you and the boat, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's just the thing is you're in your kayak. Um, it's not like you can have. I mean, you can go with a group of other kayaks, but you're in your boat by yourself, right?
yep,
I mean, going rafting it's not bad, but you got a bunch of other people rowing and things like that. I agree with you. It's a little more intimate because it's just you and your boat.
I mean, you do your own packing, you have everything there. I mean, going with a bunch of people would be brilliant, but there's times when you're out on the water. Like when I'm fishing, one of the things I like about fishing is being, the quiet. So, I
Yeah,
mean, there's nothing like hitting the water and watching the sun come up and just seeing that light level of mist on the surface of the water and hearing the splash of a fish grabbing a bug, and it's just listening to the birds and the wildlife as you just the only sound you really hear is
is
the
the boat in the
gentle,
water.
the paddle gently pushing the boat forward, and yeah, it's like
It's
pure zen.
yeah, because I mean, for me, when I was younger and I was doing all the outdoor stuff, it was, basically you just, if you wanted to get away, I just packed up my car with my pack and I took off and went up to the mountains and camped and stuff like that. But I so wish that that gear was small enough back then that I could just load it up into a kayak and just go. Um,
Yeah,
it's just because I like water. I really like water, and I just like the there's just something about water. It's nice and gentle, and yeah, that would have been so cool. It's for me that is like a complete missed opportunity for me, and I
yeah.
just thought it
Well,
I've
it never
seen.
existed when we were
Yeah,
younger.
exactly.
I was like, where the hell was this?
I know,
you
and
know?
then with me with bad shoulders, there's just and even the bad back, there's no way that you're gonna get me in a kayak. But, I see video, short YouTube shorts and stuff of people doing this. I'm just like, that is just so cool. That is
Yeah,
just so cool.
that's
But
brilliant.
the one thing I was really interested in, because something I've never done, and you've done, is deep sea fishing. That's one thing I was thinking of
Oh.
because we were kind of joking around about it because like I've never been deep sea fishing, and it's nothing like any of the fishing I've ever done. Right? I mean,
It's
it's
exhausting.
yeah. I
It's,
mean, you're
yeah. I'll tell you right now, the best sleep I've ever had in my life was the night after I came back from deep sea fishing. Because people are like, "Oh, you just cast out, you reel in, you reel, blah 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 blah,"
yeah.
and I'm like, when you have a beast on the other line and you spend hours, hours trying to get it to the boat, just to get it to the boat, not even landing the damn thing, but just getting it to the boat. I'm talking, man, it's like grabbing a water bottle. Your hands are like, it's too heavy. It's just I can't I can't do it. It's too heavy. It's like, oh my God, your arms turn into noodles. I have seen big, huge, muscled guys try to land a marlin or a tuna or something like that, and it's just so when you watch pro fishermen, doing deep sea like the tuna competition and all that stuff, they have a team and they swap people out. So as the guy is fighting the fish, the guy the other him, he'll connect, and then the other guy will release and bob out because you can't do it all. Um, the most fun I've had with deep sea fishing is we did deep water rock cods off like the Catalina Islands in California. And so I mean, oh my God, that was exhausting because you put a heavy weight because you wanted to get it down towards the bottom. And when you release the line, it just takes forever for it to get down to the bottom. And then you have all these, jig lines coming off. And then once it's at the bottom, you reel it up a little bit and you're like, uh, uh, and you don't even feel the fish hit it. I mean, I had like a double string, so I had eight little shrimp lines coming off, and we're not using any bait. It's these little jig lines, and you're just kind of teasing it. And they said, yeah, you just do it for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then reel it up or so. And then there's freaking fish on it. I brought mine up, and I had like 3 fish and some big ones too. And I'm like, oh, this is heavy, and because the weight is a big, massive weight on the end, right? So you bring it up and you're like, oh, I got fish. Yay, cool. So you put your fish away, and of course you have size limits. So we did that all morning. So it took like an hour or so to get out there on the boat. And it's a charter boat. And the first thing I do to prevent me from getting seasick, and so if you're watching this, I got news for you. People are like, I never get seasick, and they're blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I know professional uh, fishermen and crab fishermen. When I lived in Alaska, people go out there for weeks at a time, and they said everyone gets
Get sick.
seasick at least
Yeah.
once in a while. They said you'll be fine, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, because it just happens. It's an inner ear thing. It just hits you just right. So the way I prevent myself from getting seasick, and this is a good note, the moment you get on the boat, just go sit down on a bench, put your head down, and take a nap. Just take a nap. It's usually first thing in the morning, so of course you could probably take a short nap. It doesn't have to be long. A 20-minute nap is all you need. And the reason why I say take a nap is when you're asleep, your inner ear starts to adapt to the movement of the boat
Huh.
naturally.
That
So
that is
when you
something I
wake up,
never knew.
yep. So when you wake up, you're fine being like, I don't feel great. And you're like, I'm good. I'm good. And as long as I do that, I've never gotten seasick. If I don't do that, so I've gotten seasick one time where I've actually vomited. And that was, I was actually in Maui, and we went out on a snorkeling thing, and the water was kind of choppy, and I wasn't feeling great on the boat. And when I went into the water, um, if you stay still and don't swim and you're doing this, you're gonna get
You're kind of
seasick.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you have to keep
you're just a
moving.
bobber at that point.
Yeah, so that the problem I had was is I need to keep moving, and I'm like, I need to get back on the boat. Um,
See, that's why I
I
like scuba diving.
yeah,
snorkeling was okay, but I prefer to be all the way under, and I got spoiled because my first dive was off of Cozumel down in Mexico,
nice.
and damn, there's just nothing. And then you come back to the United States and you go diving and you see about this far in front of you, all right?
The
Um,
first time I ever went diving, I was in the Puget Sound in Seattle. Not only was I freezing
ooh,
my tail off, visibility was like this, and
uh,
I was like, this sucks. Um, but my favorite place I've ever dived, yeah, the first
dived,
favorite place
yeah,
I've ever dived. My favorite place I've ever dived is actually right off of Monterey in California, in the kelp forest. And you want
oh,
to talk beauty. Oh my God, clarity was fantastic. But you're swimming through these kelp forests, and they're doing this. They're swaying with the tide being pulled at the top, but you're not feeling the surge underneath. You're just watching these kelp forests dance, and there's so much marine life. We were at a preserve, so people aren't allowed to fish there. So there's just fish everywhere. And it was Monterey is just one of the most beautiful places. Um, yeah, so there's here in Florida, which is interesting, is when you learn how to scuba dive here, especially if you're like in Central Florida, instead of going out to the ocean and doing an open dive there, they have you go to was it Devil's Pit or Devil's Inn or something like that? It's a deep water kind of like cave structure, right? and it's like this really, really deep thing. And so what they do is you drop down, purge your uh, BDU and just go down to the bottom, and the water is very, very clear, and there's fish and all that stuff. And then you do everything there freshwater, and then they also have you do part of your open dive in this like kind of lake river thing. And I'm like, this is weird because with us, we trained in the pool like you do everywhere,
Yep.
right? And then
Yep.
we went straight to the ocean and we did our
Yeah, that's
open
what
dive in the ocean.
that yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did.
So I don't
And
like the fact that they have us, or they had people like my friend went to get her certification, so I went with her. I didn't dive; I just kind of went there because it was like a very long drive, um, and I wanted to make sure she was safe. But um, it was all freshwater, so they did pool to freshwater, and I'm like, but the moment you hit the ocean, it's a totally different
it
story.
is. It is.
The
It's
weight
completely different.
ratio is completely different.
Yep.
And how you're going to handle things is completely different. So I didn't like that they had
See,
them do their open dive in
I
fresh.
could see that. I could see that for inland diving, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, not for anything near the ocean because yeah, like you said, your buoyancy is completely different in salt water. Your scenery is definitely different.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, your buoyancy is different, and it's it's not the same.
Nope.
Um, but the one thing about diving out, sea is you get your yeah, you got your tanks and everything. You get your extra regulator. It's funny because you never get the same regulator twice, right? So you can always tell the regulator it's been in salt water. Um, it tastes like the salt water. Um,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just you get over it pretty quick. But that was just one of the things. It's like first time I put that regulator, I'm like, ooh, ooh. All right, we're going to get there. I was not prepared for that because the tanks that you're using in the pool are different than because they taste like chlorine. Uh,
Yep.
um, but yeah, you put that regulator in from
Mhm.
salt water, you're like, oh yeah,
So,
that's the
there's
salt water.
one thing that they used to do in California that I really enjoyed. So, like I
Okay.
said, I did my fishing trip, and we spent half the day doing deep water cod, right? I'm sorry, rockfish, not cod. And then we spend the rest of the day pulling up crab traps for Dungeness crab.
Mm.
And I got
See,
5 crabs that were like monsters. And I'm like, 2 of these crabs cost more than my whole trip cost. And I got 4 of them.
yeah, see, for me is crabbing was in Maryland, so it's all Maryland blue crab, which is nowhere near that big. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, it's I can just imagine what that would be like pulling up traps with Dungeness in it, because
Oh,
that's
well, so here's the cool thing about chartering a boat, like for deep water fishing, is when you bring your catch back. Yeah. So you have usually a bag, with a number on it, so it can identify your bag with your fish and your crab or whatever. So the people on the boat will fillet your fish for you, and they have to leave like a 1 inch by 1 inch skin on it, so it can be identified by the game wardens if they want to see what you caught. So for $1 a piece, they'll fillet your fish for you, and
oh, you see,
then
and that's the whole thing man, for a buck a piece. That's well
yeah,
worth it.
oh heck yeah, and then when you get back to the dock, like we had a bag with our crab in it, and like I said, you have a number. They jot down your number, and a bucket crab, they'll cook your crab for you. They won't crack your crab, but they'll cook it for you. And I'm like, they'll just throw your whole bag into this big boiling thing there. And I was like, this is freaking awesome. I got home, and I was like, cracked the crab. So if people haven't cracked crab, that means, breaking it open, pulling the legs and things. Um, almost everything on the crab you can eat, like in Dungeness, everything except what they call the dead man fingers, and that's the gills. You have to
Yeah,
discard the gills. They're they're toxic, and they're just these gray like tube things. So you just
yeah.
get rid of those. But everything else is I mean you
'Cause
clean out the guts and all that stuff, and then everything else is meat, and it's great.
yeah, because that's the thing with the Maryland crabs, you pull the tab on the bottom,
Hmm.
pull the shell off,
Yep.
you grab the gills, basically the lungs, toss them aside, and then what I used to do is just take the body, crack it in half, and
Hmm.
then, um, well, I would pull the legs first, and then I take that body, crack that in half, and then you pull the stuff out from the middle, and but yeah, God, I
Oh,
miss
so
I
good.
miss crabs. That
Yep.
was that was one thing when we moved to Maryland that God, you learn to like crabs really quick.
It's
Um,
good stuff.
and then where we used to keep our boat in the Chesapeake, we were up there in where the Susquehanna dumps in. So it's like right at the top of the Chesapeake. Our boat was in a marina, and the marina had a fish house, had a crab house there.
Yeah.
So what was cool is that, when they got to the end of the day, like during the week, because they would run out of crabs during the weekend. But during the week, if they had like some crabs left over, they'd go down to the docks and start giving crabs out to everybody that at least a slip there. And when I was a kid, I was high school. I didn't have really that much work to do. I mean, I did have a job when I was a senior, but until then, I would live on the boat in the week, all summer. And damn, I was eating crab damn near every night.
Yeah, it's something I
I
don't
mean,
really get sick of. You know.
right? Yeah, right.
So
Um,
I have a sport for you.
what's that?
So one of my absolute favorite sports is archery. I love archery, and it's just so much fun and requires
Archery
good
fishing.
skill. Archery fishing. So bow fishing, on the a lot of it's on the West Coast, but it's pretty much everywhere here in the States. Um, they have big competition where you go out on flatboats and you boat fish for carp, and
Wow.
they weigh it, and it's like the winners bring in like over a ton of carp, and the carp get ground up into fertilizer. But they do this, and they have these big ass prizes because carp are an invasive species, and they just want to clear them out of each lake. So why not make it a competition? Um, yeah. So you look at it, and people are on these freaking barges. I'm like, with big, huge outboard motors on the backs, and they go in close to shore, and they spread like a floating bait out there, and the carp just go crazy, and they're just shooting like crazy, bringing it out, the fish throwing them in the middle, and it's like it's an eradication. This isn't for food, this is just to eradicate them. And
It's
they have great prizes and
that
lots of fun.
that's funny because I've always seen people doing that, and I just like I never understood because like how are you standing on a boat and just staring at the water and then shooting into the water? It's like at least all the water that I've been in, you'd never be able to see it. But I guess if they're at the surface feeding,
Oh yeah.
oh, there you go.
Well, and some of these damn things weigh 60 pounds. They're huge. It uh, Evasive species. People are like, "Oh, you should just let everything live the way it wants to live," and I'm like, not with evasive species. You
Yeah,
need to eradicate them because they're destroying it for the natural species there. So you have a choice: either you eradicate the invasive species, or you watch the native species go extinct. So that's your choice, and then all you have is the invasive species. So it's people you gotta make a choice, you know, and it better be a good one. But that's one of the things I've always really
what
enjoyed is like I'm a big bass fisherman, so going out bass fishing is my happy time. I just
You know
like
what's funny? I've never had bass.
what?
I've never had bass. I know. I don't know why. I've never had bass. Um, you know,
You've never fished or eaten bass?
yes.
Okay, so
I don't.
I've
It's funny
fished
because
for bass my
I was
whole
never
life,
big
but
on.
I've never killed one. I've never killed a bass. I always
See,
release. I'm always about catch and release, but I've
I
eaten
was never a
bass.
big. I was never big on fishing.
Really?
Um, yeah, I was just. It was just was never my thing. I was always amazed at people who did it. I mean, I remember as a kid going fishing with my dad, and my granddad. I remember catching my first fish in Pennsylvania. Um, but it was just was not. It just wasn't one of my. It just wasn't my thing, right? I mean, I enjoyed. I enjoyed the experience of being out there with my dad and my granddad, but it just wasn't for me. But that was. I mean, then growing up as a kid, I used to spend time at with my grandparents up in the Poconos in the summertime. Everybody went to the shore. I went to the mountains, and there were some stocked ponds up there, so I used to go fishing there all the time. But again, it was just like you; it was all catch and release. It was actually I remember the one pond that I went to. It was actually boring because you would walk up to the edge of the pond, and there was the fish coming up. So I'm guessing that they got fed so much that they would just come up. So it's just like I didn't even have to cast. I just dipped the line in, and I had a fish on the hook. I'm just like, this is kind of boring. Um, but yeah, it's I've never had bass. I have never eaten bass. Never
So
fished bass either.
the only bass I've eaten, honestly, is my next door neighbor from my old place. I spent, if people have been watching my channel, you haven't seen a lot come up in the last week because I've been in the middle of a move, and I'm physically just exhausted moving. So I'm in my new place right now, um, and all I want to do is sleep. But I'm going to try to get my PC up and running this weekend and then start producing more content on my channel. So please bear with me. Um,
I want to see you go deep sea fishing and do video of that.
it's not hard out here in Florida because we have beasts out there. I mean, just monster
Yeah,
fish. So I'm going to do that. It does require me driving about 2 hours, for a charter. But like for my birthday a couple years, one of my best friends took me shark fishing on a
oh, see,
charter, and
I like shark meat.
yeah, well, here you can keep it or throw them back. It doesn't matter. But nobody caught anything bigger than this, like shovel nose sharks, and they were just little baby things like this big. And I didn't catch anything. Most of us didn't catch anything. I was like, this is boring as hell. I just finally stopped fishing. I'm like, this isn't having. I'm not having any fun. And then this one lady hooked this massive giant Goliath grouper.
Man,
And she wasn't going to be able to bring it up. So when the deckhands spent the next hour of the trip bringing this giant Goliath up there. Now, these are protected species, so they are 100% catch and release. So got him up to the surface. Everybody took pictures, and then he had to deflate, unhook it and deflate the bladder so it could dive back down again. And my goodness gracious, that was really cool. But it's yeah, that poor guy was exhausted at the end of that. But um, so I used to
he
do
earned his
shark
money that
fishing.
day.
I used to have a secret spot in the Bay Area, um, over at Coyote Point in the Bay Area, which is like in the San Mateo um, area, Burlingame area, San Mateo Burlingame area in the Bay Area. Uh, there was a place called Coyote Point, and we would walk out to the rocks uh, by the fishing or by the boat docks, and our secret bait for catching anything in the waters off of the San Francisco Bay Area is mackerel. You just cut it up in chunks,
Yeah.
hook it through the bone, throw it out there, and we would catch leopard sharks and bat rays all night long, all
Yeah.
night long. The biggest leopard shark I ever pulled out of the water was over 4 feet long. It was
Jeez,
really big. That's a
that's
big
big.
leopard shark. And of course, catch and release because I would never eat anything out of that water. Oh my God, that's disgusting. But we'd bring sandwiches and we'd just fish all night and talk to the other fishermen and just have a grand old time. That was one of my favorite things to do. It's like, I called my buddy Paul and I'm like, hey, let's go shark fishing. Man, way ahead of you. We just, meet up there and go out there with our mackerel, kick back on the rocks, toss out. And like, oh my God, never been skunked on there. Not one time. It we would everyone would catch multiple leopard sharks and bat rays all night long. Absolutely. So now some people are keeping the fish, and I'm like, no. Do you smell the
Yeah.
water? The water smells gross. You know, but a
Yeah. It's
lot
a
of fun.
when I lived outside of DC, I remember the radio station that I listened to. They had a they had a contest, and so this is going back a ways. So the contest was is like if you win this thing, you were going to get 5 Yugos. So that that's starting to date myself. If you know what a Yugo is, um, you'll understand how you could win 5 of them, and it's actually kind of an insult. But anyways, so it was like, what was the grossest thing you could do in a minute? And who actually could pull this off was going to win these 5 Yugos. And like one guy was like, "I'll eat a case of dog food," and they're like, "You can eat a case of dog food in a minute," and they're like, "Oh no, I can't do that." So the next caller came in and goes, "I'll drink a glass of water out of the Potomac." Right? So they're like,
You.
winner. The next day they did that thing live from where he went in with a glass and drank a glass of water from the Potomac. Um, he won his 5 cars and a trip to the ER the next day.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty
yeah,
disgusting. The amount of
we're just like
parasites.
that's nasty. Yeah, we're just like
Yeah,
that is so nasty. That water is so polluted coming out of DC.
it's
But
horrible.
yeah, but yeah, I mean that's the funny thing is that um, when you start doing stuff outdoors, you start becoming almost a conservationist, so much. Earlier you were talking about invasive species. When I was in the Coast Guard Auxiliary out here, I remember I was doing boat inspections,
Wait,
and
wait, Coast Guard in Montana?
yeah, yes, there was
Okay.
there was even a Coast Guard station in Montana. Yes.
Oh, yeah,
So
all right.
it was in Havre, which is in the middle of nowhere, but that was the Loran system. That was a station for the Loran for the yeah, this predates GPS. But yes, so Coast Guard Auxiliary because we have the Missouri River, and there's a lot of lakes here. So we would go out on the federal land, the federal waterways and patrol the federal waterways. But
Nice.
we did this thing with the state of Montana. And so we were out with DNRC, and we were doing the boat inspections, and they were doing invasive species. And you keep hearing invasive species, invasive species. Well, I'm spending all day with these people, and it's not like there's boats here all the time, right? They're launching and coming back and stuff like that. So I get a chance to talk to them a lot, and I learned so much about invasive species. And I'm like, really, is it that big of a deal here in Montana? And they're like, oh yeah, this is really screwing up the waters because they're talking about how it comes in, it takes over. In some places, it sucks up all the oxygen in the water, and the fish can't breathe.
Exactly. So, like, do
Um,
you guys have the zebra mussels in
oh yeah,
Montana?
yes,
That's
yes,
a big issue because
yep.
it spreads so quickly
Well,
from lake to lake.
we have check stations in Montana now. We've had them for
Yeah.
years,
And
where
and if
it's
people don't know
mandatory
what a
pull
zebra
over.
mussel is, they're about the size of a grain of sand.
It does.
So
You pull your boat
they're
out, it
hard
looks
to
like
tell.
there's sand. Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like there's sand on your boat.
And then
Um,
you can have your boat out of the water for like forever. And then the moment you go into another lake, you just spread it.
yep,
It's like you
there.
literally have to kind of scrub down the outside of your hull. And then, like when you go to a new lake, the guy will come out and inspect your boat and go, "You can't put it in the water. You have
Yeah,
zebra mussels." Yeah, the little bastards.
yeah. It's funny because yeah, I learned so much about that stuff. I'm just like, I've always heard of it, but what is it? And they're talking about the zebra mussels. They're talking about milfoil and all the grasses and stuff that have invaded in, and it's so weird to hear about this stuff that it's just like, wait, I hear mussels. I'm thinking, I can see this stuff, and they're like, no. And then they had some that was preserved in like a thing of lucite, and I'm just like, well, how the hell are people going to see that on their boat? I mean, if they have a dark hole, maybe, but and there's like, this is the problems. We got to get people out there, getting them to look and feel and all that stuff. And they say the biggest problem they had was that if you have when you pull your boat out, you want to inspect your boat right there at the ramp. And whatever you pull out with you, you need to leave right there at the ramp
Yep.
because you're going to start spreading it. So it's so funny how that starts. You start becoming a little bit of a conservationist with this. I mean, even with hunting, you go out hunting, hunters want good environments because they're going to be eating that, right?
Well,
You don't want,
a lot of people don't understand the land that we have that are like preserves where you're not allowed to hunt for wild animals so they can breed and grow and populate. All that money is from sportsman taxes. And
yep,
people don't realize that. So, when you buy ammo, when you buy a rifle, when you buy bows and arrows, when you buy tents, all the sporting equipment, for camping, hunting, fishing, whatever, the taxes on that money go as land preserves. And people don't realize, I mean, like, you have those land preserves because of
yeah,
us.
exactly. I mean,
Where do you
that's the
think
whole
the
thing
money
is that,
comes from? You know?
yeah, like, oh, you're going to ruin the environment. We're the ones that are actually preserving it for everybody else.
Yep.
But no, it's just kind of interesting. I didn't mean to take up a whole thing about invasive species, but that is a thing. It's pretty serious. I never really understood how bad it was until I spent an entire day talking to those girls, and I'm just like, oh, this is a serious thing. Um,
Absolutely.
so it was, I mean, because you hear, okay, zebra mussels came here from, you know, from container ships coming in from the Pacific and blah blah blah, because it's in the water ballast, and then the first thing that container ships do when they get here is they dump
Yep.
their water ballast. So now they're
Yep.
dumping water from over there over to here. Um, and then someone grabs a boat and takes it from the ocean, goes into a lake, and then you're just like, wow, this stuff spreads pretty. It's pretty
Fast.
interesting watching the spread of this stuff.
So let's
Um,
talk about more water sports. Let's talk
okay,
about whitewater rafting.
yes, yes,
That's my happy thing. I
that's a thing,
love
right?
it.
I mean, that's just. So here's a question: is it rafting or kayaking? Would you rather
So
whitewater raft it or kayak it?
I'd rather raft.
Yeah, I
Um,
would too.
I respect anyone who can do whitewater kayaking, but my favorite rafts to hit are class four, class fives. So I was trained to be a guide down the American River in California. Um, and I would do this shoot like every weekend. which is a class 5. It's where they blasted out this big channel for gold, and a raft barely fits down the channel. So seeing the rafts flip over, get bunged and jackknife, and or get sucked into the dip at the very end of the chute. The water's turning like this, and it'll suck a raft down. Um, and it's just wonderful fun. And I've met so everyone I've ever rafted with has fallen out of the boat at least once.
Yeah.
I have never fallen out of the boat, not one time in
Really?
all. And I mean, I've done so many different types of class. Ones to threes, threes and fours and fives. And I've never ever fallen out of the boat. I've jumped out of the boat a couple of times to swim, like swimmer rapids, class ones. But it's like for some reason like there's times where we'll hit something, we'll flip or not flip, it will bend and jackknife, and I'm the only one left in the boat. They're like, "How the hell did you not come out of the boat?" I'm like, "Don't know." But
Did you
yeah.
have you seen the video of the whitewater people whitewater rafting? The raft flips over, everybody ejects, and the one guy kind of like ends up on top.
No.
As it's going over, he ends up like stepping over, and he's on the raft's upside down. He's standing on the top, and everybody else is in the water. I'm like, how the hell did he pull that off? Um, it's funny because I'm like googling it right now, trying to find it. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it,
uh,
it's it's tremendous fun. It is a lot of fun. If you're watching this and you've never gone whitewater rafting, um,
it's a
when
lot of
you
fun.
first, it is tremendous fun. When you first go, if you're a beginner, they'll put you class 1 through 3s, and those are just like a wet roller coaster. It's lots of fun, not really dangerous. The moment you start getting in class 4, class 5s, it's mandatory that you wear a helmet, and those are dangerous. But class 3s, like the one that down the River, one of the most popular class 3 rapids is Satan's Cesspool. And I'll sit there and just sit and watch rafts come by and watch people get thrown out of the raft left and right. That's a really, really fun rapid. It's a class 3, but the only time I ever see people falling out of the boats on that is if they're going down the rapid on their own without a guide and they don't know what they're doing. And then even then, I've never seen anyone seriously injured. But
Yeah,
that's fun. It's like it's an all day thing, and it's more fun than should be allowed. It's just
it
brilliant.
is a lot of fun. Um, I really I haven't done it often, but man, the few times I've been, I've never regretted the trip. Right?
It's
I
worth
mean,
it.
that's just it's so worth it.
Yep, lots and lots and lots of fun. Oh wow, we're about almost 45 minutes in. So what is your favorite water sport, Jason?
That's a tough one.
I mean,
Um,
and that includes water skiing, jet skis, fishing, bow fishing, whitewater rafting.
I I'll tell you, I think my favorite, it's changed because I got older. I just kind of like just sitting out and putting around. Um, just kind of just chilling out. I just love being out there and just kind of setting the throttle and just kind of just putting around and
Have you ever been
enjoying the
sailing?
day. I have been sailing. I
Sailing's
grew
nice.
up. I've grown up. You mean blow boating? Yeah, I grew up. My uncle who's land up in the Poconos that we used to go hunting and camping on. He had a sailboat in New Jersey, and yeah, I remember many childhood memories of being out there on that sailboat, and just yeah, sail. I'll tell you, I'm a lazy boater. Um, Sailing's a lot of work, but there's just something about harnessing wind to push you through the water is just kind of cool, right?
Absolutely. It's peaceful. It's very
It is.
peaceful.
But if
Yeah,
I, but just because I'm not going to do all the work, I'm more of a power boater.
yeah, yeah. I like
Not
running electric engines, like where I can just slowly move through the water.
as quiet.
Yep. Where'd you
And
go?
my camera just died. I know I'm still here. Uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, really, what I'm doing is I'm sitting there giving Lupo all kinds of hand gestures. Uh, no, I'm just a kind of a lazy person, so I kind of like power boating.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, I went jet skiing for the first time uh, a couple months ago, and I discovered, excuse me, I discovered I am not a fan of jet skis.
Really? What don't
Yeah,
you like about a jet ski?
um, so I've been boating my whole life, and jet skis don't do what boats are supposed to do. So, like,
What do you
if
mean?
so, an example on a regular boat, uh, I can turn left or right without power because the motor acts as a
Oh,
rudder.
because yeah, you don't have a rudder. Yeah, no, jet skis.
Jet
But
skis, you can turn the handle and nothing happens unless you add power to it because it's
yeah,
forced turn.
I
And
can see that because
now, mind you, I
we
went
used to have
on
a
a
jet boat.
choppy water and I had a good time. It was fun, but I was like, I don't need to buy a jet ski ever. I'm good.
See, I like jet skis. They're a lot of fun, but yeah, you do need to think about that. We, my wife and I, we used to have a little small jet boat out here in Montana, and that was we used to have so much fun in that thing because what was great about it because it was just a little two-seater jet boat, and we could get into places that boats couldn't get into, and that's what we used
Yeah.
to love about that. And the same thing with jet skis. Um, the one problem I had with jet skis, and it was one of the last times we were on the water. Um, we were out, we were out with our boat, and I had a jet ski come off the shore, and he's just flying. And I'm looking, I'm like, this. All right, so he's coming in from the right, so he's got the right of way, and the guy comes in and then does a 360 right in front of me. Well, I had to go into full reverse on my boat to keep from running him over. And I was just like, I was just yelling at him. And he's like, he he's like, "Oh, he's basically I'm the idiot." I'm like, "Dude, there's a whole lake here. We're the only boat, and you had to do this in front of us."
Yep.
So at the time, I was the flotilla commander for the Coast Guard Auxiliary here, and I remember we're coming back in, and I grabbed the radio and found out who was on patrol. And I'm like, "You guys you need to watch this guy because I think he's already drunk." And they're like, "Okay, it's 9 o'clock in the morning." I'm like, "Yes, so you might wanna watch this guy." So they went out to go check him out, and he starts, like, yelling. He's like at them. It's like, "Yeah, that asshole almost ran me over." I mean, he's going through all the stuff that, like, you did a 360 right in front of him while he's under power. And he's like, why are you guys bothering me?" And they're like, "Look, we're just checking you out. We just say, hey, look, this could be an issue." And he goes, "Yeah, that guy doesn't know how to boat." And they're like, "Well, he does teach boater safety, and he's been boating a long time and has been out in the ocean and knows a thing or two." And he's like, "Oh, so you're gonna take his word over mine?" They go, "Well, he is our boss too." So
Yeah,
it was
I
kind of
take
funny.
boating real seriously. I got
Yeah.
certified for deep water navigation when I was in the Bay Area. So, like, you're not supposed to take the boats out past the Golden Gate Bridge unless you're a certified for deep water. So I got my certification, and I've taken boats out to the Catalina Islands, and
There's
and
there's something
it's
about
nice.
blue water that's cool, right?
It's
There's
just
something about
I
being out in
love
blue
it.
water is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. And every body of water is different, and that's something that people are, oh, I've been boating forever, blah blah blah, and I'm like, the water's different at Lake Michigan than it is into the open ocean, and
Yeah.
that's different than Clear Lake in Northern California. The different water has different densities also. And a lot of it has to do with the brackishness of the water itself. So in some situations, you'll find that the water is slightly brackish, which is a slight salt
Yeah.
content. And then in other circumstances, you have this pure, clear water. So the clarity, the choppiness, the weather conditions, all this makes a difference when you're out there on boating and how you handle your boat.
Yeah, it does. I'll tell you because I've been boating a while, and then when I did is SC&E, search coordination and execution, so search and rescue training. Um, when we started learning that, I remember I remember that class well. We start learning it's different boating, right? Because you're under power and stuff. Then you start figuring out like you start figuring out drift theory
Yep,
and how much the wind, how much the currents and all that stuff affect the drift of a boat. Because now you're looking for someone just because they reported here, they could be way the hell over there and trying to figure that stuff out. And I had a whole new appreciation for boating after I fully understood drift theory. Um, I mean, you always understand drift, right? I mean, you're always going to drift the currents, but when you start talking about weather patterns and ocean currents and things like that, you're just like there. There are so many things that are working against you. It's unbelievable.
and
If
you
something were
better
to
be aware of
happen,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, like,
something,
safety is a big thing. So,
yeah,
a lot of boaters don't like wearing life preservers. And if you're on a fast moving watercraft, especially jet skis, you have to wear a life vest.
well,
And it needs to
it's
be a
it's
class
not
that
just
will
that.
actually, that will save your life.
It's not just that. Is you need a speed rated life jacket.
Yes. Yep.
So, like the life jacket I had in the auxiliary, um, mine was speed rated because well, first of all, we were out there in water and in power boats, but on top of that, I didn't know what craft I was going to be on, for patrol.
Hmm.
So I had a speed rated life jacket. It was so nice because I had a nice like felt collar to it too, and but if you don't have a life jacket rated for that speed, is what happens is water water acts like concrete when you hit it hard.
Yeah.
Um, and a life jacket can actually kind of tear apart if it's not built correctly for that type of impact. And I think mine rated for I think mine was rated for like 65. So it was rated pretty high. It was an expensive jacket. Don't get me wrong. It was an awesome one. But yeah, that was one thing I never appreciated before that time was a good life jacket. And the thing is now that they've got life jackets that are self-inflatable ones. There's almost no reason not to have a life jacket anymore. Um, I mean, I understand people don't want them, but really people have them there. Wear it if you can, because even with the inflatable ones, one of the problems with them is takes it takes a second or two for them to actually
Inflate.
recognize that they're in the water to set off that capsule to set the put the CO2 into your jacket. I've talked to people who've actually been in the underwater with their jacket, and they're like underwater, and their head was actually, going through their head was, I thought this thing was supposed to inflate, and right when they got that out of their head, the thing went off and then rocketed them to the top.
Yep.
So just realize that it's not an instant thing. You might be underwater, you might take a mouthful or two of water before you come to the top.
So we're about 5 minutes left. Let's talk about our subject for next week.
So what'd you come up with?
Choosing the proper caliber for the proper task. Whether that's competition, shooting, or hunting, which caliber should you pick? Um,
Oh, that's gonna
and
go that's gonna go so many different directions when we talk about that.
yes, it is. Well, I mean, the key to this is like people are like, well, which caliber should I use for when I'm hunting? And the first question is, what are you going to
What
hunt
are you
for,
hunting? Yeah.
right? And do you want a wide range? I mean, I want to hunt everything from pigs to mule deer, or do you want to just go after deer? Do you want to go after moose? Are you going to do elk? Do you want to do bear? Uh, are you just really into pig hunting? That
Well,
makes a big difference. And then choosing
it
a
does.
caliber for competition is very, very distinct. So, like some competitions, it's a specific caliber. 22 long rifle is a rimfire competition, and that's simple. It's 22,
Well,
long rifle. But
even then, your caliber might also depend. It might also say what division you're shooting in
that's true
competition.
because you have 22 Magnum and you have 20, you have .17 HMR. Um, I think it's HMR. I don't remember. My brain melts.
It's HMR. Well,
Okay.
there's two 17s. One's HMR.
Yeah. Which is what I have. The other thing is if you're going to go for, I mean, because I'm into long range shooting, what caliber, do you want to get when you get into long range shooting? And that's an interesting factor because just to kind of tease it, your smartest process would be is to get a rifle that's capable of long range shooting and get it into 223. And I'll explain why next week, why the 223 is your perfect long range shooting rifle for beginning. Um, and then what caliber should you plan on? The buy once, cry once for extreme long range, like a mile to 2 miles. And not,
I can't see 2 miles.
yeah, but not a 50 BMG, right? Because a 50
And
BMG is,
what's
everybody goes,
funny
oh,
is
there's a good thing. So we're going to
that's
talk
actually
about,
a bad caliber.
yeah. So, I mean, so without talking about 50 BMGs, we're going to talk about which calibers are for the extreme long range, and there's a lot of opinions out there, but, we've done research, and
You know
I
what
think
my
the answers are going to surprise you.
long range caliber is, don't you?
No, what is your long range caliber?
155 millimeters.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I want a 155 howitzer. That's my long range.
Yeah, but how are you going to mark the target? You have to hit the target more than once.
155s can do that.
Well, no, the
M-
target's
Me
gone.
me shooting. No, it depends on the target.
If I'm doing a plate of steel that's 4 feet in diameter and you hit it with a howitzer, that's not going to be there anymore.
Yeah, but I win. I win.
Well,
You
no,
can't outshoot
no,
me.
that's one hit is a specific amount of points. So if you hit and destroy the target, you probably lost if somebody can hit the target twice.
But I
Hmm.
could argue that how can you prove that I didn't hit it the second time if it isn't there?
Because it's not there anymore.
A piece of it somewhere.
All right, so tune in next week. We're going to talk about, how to pick your calibers for different things that you want to do while you're shooting. And I encourage you, if to check out the Rogue Banshee. Uh, Jason's fantastic. He's one of my best friends in the whole world, and his channel is magnificent. You really need to check him out and subscribe to his channel. I am Robert Lupo from Lupo Outdoors, and we cover everything outdoors. And we got some really, really good content coming up really, really soon. I just moved, so I haven't been filming a lot, but within the next week or so, we're going to be putting up some really, really good videos. So please like and subscribe to Lupo Outdoors. You won't be disappointed. And saying that, we will see you next week on how to pick your caliber.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye bye.